Every ex-jock, shapely female, or hometown buddy with a hard luck story had come to regard Bobby Tom as an easy mark. Jack peeled the silver foil coin off the end of the Tums roll. "Just out of curiosity, you know anything about acting?" "Hell no." "That's what I figured." "I don't see what difference it makes. Movies like this, all anybody has to do is kick ass and undress women. Hell, I've been doing that since I was 8 years old." That sort of comment was vintage Bobby Tom, and Jack smiled. Regardless of what his client said, he had to believe Bobby Tom planned to make a success out of his movie career. He'd never known the ex-football player to take on anything he didn't plan to do well, from acquiring land to buying new businesses. On the other hand, he certainly was taking his time about it. Jack settled back in his chair. "I talked with Willow Craig from Windmill a couple of hours ago. She's a mighty unhappy lady, especially since you're the one who insisted that all the location shooting be done in Tularosa. They needed a small town in Texas. You know how bad the economy's been down there, and this'll help out. I thought you were doing your best to stay away from your hometown for a while, especially with all this craziness over that big festival they're planning to rejuvenate the town." Bobby Tom winced. "Don't remind me." "The fact is, you have to get down there. Windmill has already moved in their equipment and personnel, but they don't have you there so they can start shooting. I told them I'd show up. Just like you told them you'd show up for all those meetings and wardrobe fittings they had scheduled for you in L.A. 2 weeks ago. That was chicken shit stuff. Hell, I've already got the best wardrobe of any player in the NFL. What do I need fittings for?" Jack gave up. As usual, Bobby Tom was going to do things his own way. For all his surface amiability, the Texan was stubborn as a mule, and he didn't like being pushed. Bobby Tom lowered his boots from the desk and slowly rose. Although he hid it well, Jack knew that he'd been devastated by his forced retirement. Ever since the doctors had told him he'd never play again, Bobby Tom had been wheeling and dealing with the ferocity of a man poised on the brink of financial ruin, instead of a sports legend whose multi-million-dollar salary from the Chicago Stars provided only a fraction of his net worth. Jack wondered if this movie deal wasn't just Bobby Tom's way of passing time while he tried to figure out what to do with the rest of his life. Bobby Tom paused at the door and gave his agent that level, blue-eyed gaze defensive players all over the league had learned to dread. "How about you get hold of those people at Windmill right now and tell them to call off their bodyguard?" Although the request was mildly uttered, Jack wasn't fooled. Bobby Tom always knew exactly what he wanted, and he generally got it. "I'm afraid somebody's already on the way, and they're sending an escort, not a bodyguard. I told them I'd get myself to Tularosa, and I will. If any damn bodyguard shows up and thinks he's going to order me around, he'd better be one tough hombre, because otherwise he's going to end up with my initials carved in his backside." Jack glanced down at the yellow legal pad in front of him and decided this wasn't the best time to tell Bobby Tom that the tough hombre Windmill Studios was sending went by the name of Gracie Snow. As he slipped the pad under a file folder, he hoped to hell Miss Snow had a gorgeous ass, a man-killer set of tits, and the instinct of a piranha. Otherwise, she wasn't going to stand a chance against Bobby Tom Denton. Gracie Snow was having a bad hair month. As the humid night breeze of early July sent a kinky, coppery brown lock flying in front of her eyes, she decided she should have known better than to trust a hairdresser named Mr. Ed. She didn't believe it was productive to dwell on the negative, however, so instead of dwelling on her bad permanent, she locked the door on her rental car and made her way up the sidewalk to the house of Bobby Tom Denton. Half a dozen cars were parked in the curving drive, and as she approached the sleek cedar and glass structure that overlooked Lake Michigan, she heard music blaring. It was nearly 9:30, and she wished she could postpone this encounter until morning, when she'd be better rested and less nervous. But she simply didn't have the luxury of time. She needed to prove to Willow Craig that she could efficiently discharge her first real responsibility. It was an unusual house, low and sprawling, with a sharply angular roof. The lacquered front doors held elongated aluminum handles that looked like